You're standing in the middle of a football pitch at the World Cup. 60,000 people are screaming around you. And right in front of your eyes, one player has just punched another in the face and broken his nose. You're the referee. You have to do something. So what do you reach for? Nothing. There's nothing to reach for. You have no red card, no yellow card. There's no fourth official, no video replay, no earpiece feeding you advice. The player who threw the punch doesn't even speak your language, so you can't simply tell him he's in trouble. Your only tools are a whistle, a voice he can't understand, a small notebook in your pocket, and your own bare authority. That's it. That is the entire toolkit for controlling 22 of the most competitive men on the planet in the biggest match of their lives. Today, refereeing looks like science fiction by comparison. A referee has a yellow card understood instantly in every language on Earth, a red card that ends all argument, video review, goal line technology, and a team of officials wired together by radio. We complain about all of it, but here's the thing that surprises people. The red and yellow card, maybe the most basic symbol in all of football, is decades younger than the World Cup itself. For the first 40 years of the tournament, it simply did not exist. So, how did referees actually control a World Cup before red and yellow cards existed? Let's start with what a referee in those days actually had. One man in the middle, two linesmen on the edges, a whistle, and a little notebook. That was the system. When a player did something wrong, the referee would blow the whistle, maybe wag a finger, give him a stern talking to, and if it was serious, take out his notebook and write the player's name down. A booking, quite literally, meant your name went in a book. If the offense was bad enough, the referee would simply point to the touchline, and you were sent off. And all of this depended on one fragile thing: the referee's personal authority. The whole game ran on the assumption that when the official made a decision, the players would respect it and obey. There was no card to make it official, no screen to prove it, no system to fall back on. It was just a man, his whistle, and the hope that everyone would listen. When that hope held, it worked fine. But the World Cup created a problem that domestic football never really had, and it exposed just how shaky that authority really was. Think about what makes the World Cup different from a normal league match. In a domestic league, the referee and the players usually all speak the same language. The official can shout a warning, explain a decision, tell a player he's on his last chance and everyone understands. But the World Cup throws together nations from every corner of the planet. You might have a German referee officiating a match between Argentina and England, a Brazilian official refereeing Italy against Chile, and suddenly, the referee's most basic tool, his voice, becomes useless. How do you warn a player who doesn't share a single word with you? How do you tell him clearly one more foul and you're off when he can't understand you and you can't understand him? You can gesture, you can raise your voice, but there is no guarantee any of it gets through. This was the crack running right through the heart of refereeing. The referee had authority, but he had no clear, instant way to communicate it. And authority that can't be understood is authority that can be ignored. At the highest level of the sport, control was being lost in translation. And in 1962, that crack split wide open into the most violent match the World Cup has ever seen. The 1962 World Cup was held in Chile, and the group stage match between the hosts, Chile and Italy, became so infamous it earned its own name, the Battle of Santiago. The tension was lit before kickoff. Two Italian journalists had written brutal articles insulting Chile and its capital, calling it a backward, miserable place. The reports made it back to Chile, the public was enraged, and by the time the two teams walked out in front of 66,000 people, the atmosphere was pure poison. The referee that day was an Englishman named Ken Aston. Remember that name? He matters enormously to this story. The first foul came after about 12 seconds. 12 seconds. Inside the opening minutes, an Italian player, Giorgio Farini, was sent off and he completely refused to leave the pitch. Play was held up for around 8 to 10 minutes while armed police physically marched him off the field, kicking and protesting the whole way. It only got worse. A Chilean forward, Lionel Sanchez, the son of a professional boxer, was fouled, and he responded by turning and breaking an Italian player's nose with a clean left hook. The punch happened just yards from a linesman, and nothing happened. No punishment. The referee was busy dealing with other chaos, there was no system to catch it, and the man simply played on. Later, another Italian tried to kick Sanchez in the head and was sent off. Police had to come onto the pitch to restore order not once, but several times. At times, the match looked less like football and more like a brawl with a ball occasionally rolling through it. Afterwards, Ken Aston summed it up with a line that says everything about how powerless the old system could be. He said he hadn't been refereeing a football match at all. He felt like he was acting as the umpire of a military exercise. Think about what that match proved. With only a whistle, a notebook, and his authority, even an experienced international referee couldn't keep control. When players decided to ignore him, there was almost nothing he could do but call the police. The tools were simply not strong enough for the job. The breaking point came 4 years later at the 1966 World Cup in England, and the same man, Ken Aston, was right at the center of it again, except this time he wasn't refereeing. He was now the head of all the referees at the tournament. The match was the quarterfinal. Hosts England against Argentina. The German referee was Rudolf Kreitlein, and in the first half, Kreitlein sent off Argentina's captain, Antonio Rotten. What was the offense? This is the incredible part. It wasn't a violent tackle or a punch. The official explanation was something like violence of the tongue. Rotten had been arguing and protesting. But here's the problem. Kreitlein spoke no Spanish, and Rotten spoke no German. The referee later said, more or less, that he simply didn't like the way Rotten had looked at him. A captain was being thrown out of a World Cup quarterfinal over a glare and words neither man could translate. And Ratton, naturally, had no idea what was going on. He refused to leave. The game ground to a halt for around 10 minutes. Ken Aston himself had to come down to help defuse it. Eventually, with police escorting him, Ratton walked, but on his way he sat down on the red carpet reserved for the Queen and crumpled an English corner flag in protest. That was the loud, famous incident. But the one that truly changed football was much quieter. In the same chaotic match, the referee had also booked 2 England players, the brothers Bobby and Jack Charlton, and they didn't know. There was no card held up, no clear signal. The Charlton brothers walked off at the end of a World Cup quarterfinal with no idea they'd been formally cautioned. In fact, Jack Charlton only found out he'd been booked when he read about it in the newspaper afterwards. England's manager, Alf Ramsey, had to go and ask FIFA officials to confirm what had even happened to his own players. Sit with how absurd that is. At the very highest level of the sport, a player could be officially punished and have no idea it had occurred. The system wasn't just struggling with violence. It couldn't even reliably communicate a simple booking. Ken Aston drove home from Wembley that evening with all of this swirling in his head. The Ratton chaos, the Charlton confusion, the years of decisions lost in translation, the whole tangled problem of how a referee could make himself understood to anyone, instantly, in any language. And then, on the way home, he stopped at a set of traffic lights on Kensington High Street in London. He watched the lights change. Amber, get ready. Slow down. Take care. Red, stop. And it clicked. That was the answer. Colors need no translation. Every driver on Earth already understood them. What if a referee carried colored cards? A yellow card to mean careful, this is a warning. A red card to mean stop, you're off. No words. No language barrier. No confusion. A player, the other players, the crowd, even people watching on television, everyone would understand in an instant, no matter what language they spoke. When Aston got home, he explained the idea to his wife Hilda, and in one of the loveliest details in football history, she took 2 pieces of ordinary colored art paper, one yellow, one red, and cut them down to a size that would slip neatly into a referee's pocket. Those 2 little rectangles of paper, cut at a kitchen table, were the first football cards in the world. The idea was presented to FIFA, and the cards made their debut at the very next World Cup Mexico, 1970. They worked instantly. A single piece of colored card had solved a problem that authority, whistles, notebooks, and even police on the pitch never could. And that's the strange, beautiful truth of it. These days, we groan when a referee reaches into his pocket. We argue about soft yellows and harsh reds. We treat the card as an annoyance, a tiny piece of bureaucracy interrupting the game we love. But that little rectangle of color is one of the most elegant inventions in the entire history of sport. Because of what came before it. Before the card, control at a World Cup rested on almost nothing. It rested on a referee's voice, in a language half the players couldn't understand. It rested on a notebook nobody in the stadium could see. It rested on the fragile hope that 22 men would simply choose to obey. And when that hope collapsed, as it did in Santiago, the only thing left was armed police dragging players off the grass. We imagine referees have always held the power to control the game. They haven't. For the first 40 years of the World Cup, a referee's authority was mostly a polite agreement that could shatter at any moment. The game didn't get its true sense of order from its rules alone. It got it from a man stuck at a red light and 2 pieces of colored paper cut to size at his kitchen table. The next time you see a referee raise that yellow card, remember it isn't bureaucracy. It's the simplest, smartest solution football ever found to a problem it couldn't fix for 40 years. How do you tell the whole world all at once that the game has a limit?